Today on Navigating Retirement, before we get into the best places to retire in Canada or considerations for that, let's start, Jeff, with international focus. And one of the places you like is Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, absolutely. A recent study that we were looking at talked about Spain and Ecuador and Panama, but Costa Rica came right to the top. Number of reasons. First, the weather's great.
Yeah.
It's constant. You don't have to shovel the snow. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Very interesting healthcare structure. If they've been taking in Canadian retirees for 30 years. You show up there and you've got a nominal income of $1,000 in retirement income a month, you have access to their entire healthcare system for less than $150 a month. It's
Wow,
complete.
That's pretty good. Dave,
Yeah.
if you have to consider Canada, what would be the considerations for retiring in Canada?
Well, I've got to think I think it's very individual in terms of people's preferences. As an example, my sister and her husband lived in Vernon, and they happened to retire to High River. And I think part of their considerations were it was a little less expensive. They were closer. They were pretty close to Calgary, so they had the amenities, and they were also close to grandchildren, so that was helpful. But I think you see a lot of retirees coming to this area here, and it's because of the amenities. It's not less expensive from a real estate standpoint, but it does have pretty good healthcare facilities, and it's got great amenities, great weather. Some people complain, as you mentioned before, about having the extremes, right? Yeah. You've got too hot, too cold. So I think in Canada there was a recent study that was done through Money Sense. I think the last census was 2015, and what they did say was Ottawa was the #1 choice, and it surprised me that Kelowna was so far down the list.
Yeah, part of it's expense. Let's talk about the pros and cons, Jeff, of international versus retiring in Canada.
International is not for everybody, but obviously one of the pros is cost of living. It's considerably lower in a place like Costa Rica or Panama, Ecuador, and I mean you don't have to stay there. They don't have the same type of rules as going to the U.S.
Right.
The healthcare, in some cases, it's extremely good. But one of the cons is the distance. If your family's in Canada, you got to come back, or if they're building their family and raising their kids, they got to pay to come to see you, which is not necessarily going to happen.
You know what, I got to think too, one of the pro and cons of living elsewhere is the language.
Yeah.
And so for some people,
it's
like, some people actually, I've got some friends that speak fluent Spanish, and that's part of their retirement plan, is to go to and speak Spanish in an area that they can, right? So.
If you choose Canada, Dave, what would be some places you might consider? I mean, Kelowna is obviously popular based on the number of seniors, but what about a place like Merritt or Soyuz or somewhere like that, a little smaller?
We talked about this a little bit, and Merritt, we were wondering, why don't more people that are retiring congregate in Merritt versus a Soyuz? And I think a big part of it is, the amenities aren't quite the same as Kelowna. But in Soyuz, there seems to be a large congregation of people that go there, and I think that it's the more retired people, the more attraction to retired community.
Yeah. More things
right?
to do,
it's
more
just
people to hang out with.
Seems to be a retirement. So social connections are a big part of retirement.
Thanks for joining us, guys, and your website if people are looking for more information.
Yourlifeyourplan.ca.